Stephanie Sakal has the details.
According to statistics from the FBI in 2022, the United States saw a 33% decrease in reported anti-Asian hate crimes, with 499 incidents down from 746 in 2021. However, hate crimes in general have been increasing for several years, reaching over 13,000 reported incidents in 2022, primarily targeting race, ethnicity, and ancestry. Black people were victims in 52% of race-related offenses. The FBI adds that their annual report likely underrepresents actual hate crimes due to underreporting and data gaps and law enforcement participation variations.
Here in the United States, our most immediate concern is that violent extremists, individuals or small groups, will draw inspiration from the events in the Middle East to carry out attacks against Americans going about their daily lives.
FBI Director Christopher Wray says concern is rising about anti-Semitism in the U.S., with the Jewish community representing 2.4% of the population, but accounting for 60% of religious-based hate crimes.
Yep.
We've already seen that with the individual we arrested last week in Houston, who'd been studying how to build bombs and posted online about his support for killing Jews. And with the tragic killing of a 6-year-old Muslim boy in Illinois in what we're investigating as a federal hate crime.
The FBI is addressing this issue through law enforcement efforts and encourages vigilance and reporting of suspicious activities to ensure public safety. Stephanie Sakal, NTD News.
Southwest Atlanta. The accident happened on Whitehall and Lee Streets. Police say the victim died there. We're told the driver did stay on the scene. And crews are battling a fire at Hogan's Lumberyard in Athens. Athens Clark County Fire and Emergency Services posted these pictures of that fire. Wow, asking that you avoid Tallahassee Road in the area of Westchester Drive while they work to put out the fire. Secretary of State Antony Blinken visited Israel today. There he met with Israel's president. The meeting comes as President Biden suggests a pause in fighting to allow for more humanitarian aid to be sent into the Gaza Strip as the war worsens. Meanwhile, Israel says it's given Palestinians in the area enough warnings about fleeing northern Gaza before incoming airstrikes and its ground offensive.
We've carried out 6 million text messages and 4 million phone calls to the citizens of Gaza.
We stand strongly for the proposition that Israel has not only the right but the obligation to defend itself and to do everything possible to make sure that this October 7th can never happen again.
Israeli forces have now encircled Gaza City, which Israel says is the center of Hamas's military infrastructure. A shooting less than a mile from Stockbridge High School sends one person to the hospital. Investigators say a suspected drunk driver also hit an undercover police vehicle at the same location. Good day's Mark Teichner has more.
Henry County Police responded during the overnight hours here to Old Conyers Road for a shooting. And while they were investigating that shooting, they say a suspected drunk driver hit one of their unmarked cars. Henry County Police squad cars blocked Old Conyers Road for much of the overnight hours. This after a shooting less than a mile from Stockbridge High sends a person to the hospital. Police aren't giving out a lot of details about what happened, but do say the person shot is suffering from non-life-threatening injuries. They also tell us an undercover Henry County police vehicle was damaged, possibly hit by a drunk driver. We do know that no officers were hurt and that outside agencies are being brought in to assist with the investigation. That outside agency, specifically Georgia State Troopers, they're the ones investigating the suspected drunk driving situation. The officer who was in that vehicle that was hit told us he was going to go get checked out at the hospital just to make sure he was okay. Reporting from Henry County, I'm Mark Teichner for Good Day Atlanta.
Atlanta police rid of the sweatshirt and what appears to be an AR-style rifle before leaving the scene. Now, more video shows 2 men dressed in black who police say fired back at the man in the purple hoodie. All that led to the 4 bystanders, including 2 GSU students, getting shot early Sunday.
Seems to keep happening no matter what evidence we have or people we catch, so it's still a little nerve-wracking, but I'm glad we're making some headway.
Police say the 2 students and 1 other victim are recovering just fine. The 4th victim remains in critical condition at the hospital. Well, state senators gathered under the Gold Dome to discuss issues and possible solutions at the Fulton County Jail. A former inmate and his attorney told lawmakers what it's like inside the jail. They say the criminal justice system is overtaxed, leading to deplorable conditions at the Rice Street facility. They say the jail, quote, smells like death. Jail officials agree.
The physical plant has become so dilapidated that the inmates are able to create weapons by reaching into the walls, using broken flooring, electrical covering, pipes, etc. to create makeshift weapons.
What a mess. Now, there have been 10 deaths at the jail this year alone and 68 assaults on staff. Now, a pattern of violence at one southeast Atlanta gas station has residents concerned. 38-year-old Greg Andrews was gunned down Wednesday at the Amoco on Lakewood Avenue. LaShonda Sheree Edge's family tells us she was killed at the same station last year. And a year and a half later, the shooter in that case is still on the run.
It was like I relived last year, March 1st, getting a phone call that my aunt was murdered during a drive-by while going to cash in a winning lottery ticket. It's everywhere. I do know that it's everywhere. It's not just there. Just put the guns down.
Terrible. Police tell us many cases like these have no arrests. So if you know anything that can help, you're asked to contact the Atlanta Police Department. Atlanta's mayor and police chief putting their holiday shopping security plan into action. It's called Operation Deep Freeze and involves arresting offenders who already have outstanding warrants and getting them off the streets. Mayor Andre Dickens says that while you're at the mall and shopping districts, expect to see more police officers and patrol cars. Fire officials will also be on site.
And we want to, as we go into this shopping season, for people across the city of Atlanta to know that we will be vigilant about making sure that people can shop, that they can dine, that they can entertain in peace across the city of Atlanta.
Atlanta police want everyone to keep valuables out of sight in your car. So important. They also want gun owners to utilize lock boxes instead of your glove compartment. And those are some of the stories we're following this morning. Ladies, I'll send it back over to you.
All right, Elise, thank you. Well, the time now is 10:06, and even though we needed to bundle up again this morning, we've got some nice changes for the weekend. Let's check in with Fox 5 Storm Team meteorologist Jonathan Stacy for an update on our weekend forecast. Good morning.
Good morning to you, ladies. It's all about incremental improvement today and into the weekend. Temperatures this morning are still in some cases in the 30s, just above freezing there in Blairsville.
With both financial and material support, but we need to stand back and let them do their job because it's not for us to do that.
The IDF also updated its casualty count, saying they've lost 24 soldiers since the start of the offensive along the Israel-Gaza border. Trey Yingst, Fox News.
Would you take a look at this moment from Wednesday's Hawks versus Wizards game? The Marcus Jewish Community Center of Atlanta and the Atlanta Hawks hosted local Israeli families. This special event culminated in a post-game gathering of nearly 200 attendees. The group got the chance to meet Benny Adiva, the Wizards' Israeli basketball star. Today, President Joe Biden heads to Lewiston, Maine to pay respects to the 18 people killed in a mass shooting. First Lady Jill Biden will also be there. They'll meet with families, community members, and first responders. The visit comes almost a week after a two-day manhunt for Robert Card ended. Authorities found him dead. Let's pay close attention to that weekend forecast. We know many of you have
pockets. Hamas's leaders have other sources of wealth.
Iran gives them around $100 million annually, which it moves through to Hamas via shell companies. Qatar, since 2014, has been giving hundreds of millions of dollars to Hamas. There's also a Syrian fund where several billion dollars have been embezzled. Hamas has benefited from cryptocurrencies and through charities.
Middle East expert Barak Sina says these charities and cryptocurrency funds are constantly being identified and shut down. Hamas then opens new ones elsewhere. Sina says Hamas's leaders use a lot of this money to live luxurious lifestyles in Qatar. Much of the rest of it goes to fighting Israel. Faye Porter, NTV News.
To even what's going on in Central Asia, China has been making bold moves, and they do these moves not overtly, That's part. I mean, that they can do that too. But what they choose to do is sort of these subtle moves where they will send a signal to Israel saying, "Hey, we don't recognize your country anymore." Now, what's left unsaid is unless Israel does something that Beijing wants, and so. But this is China signaling that it's getting more involved and where its sympathies lie right now, which is not with the people of Israel.
Now, at the same time, China's foreign ministry is saying that ties with Israel are still solid. How should we read this?
There's a tightrope that both sides have to walk because Israel also wants to have good relations with China because it's the second largest economy in the world. China is making bold moves geoeconomically to get more involved in the Middle East. And China, for its part, very badly wants to gain access to that very lucrative high-tech sector in Israel. It's a way for them to backdoor and gain access to critical American technology that we have for the last several years slowly cut them off from access to. So there's sort of this dance going on where China has a desire to isolate Israel on the world stage, to pressure the Israeli leaders, basically to make Israel less reliant on the United States and make the Israelis look more to Beijing as a possible peacemaker in the region. And completely ridiculous, and the Chinese they're out of their element if they're even being serious right now. The two-state solution is no longer viable. Gaza had the opportunity to elect a leadership democratically in 2006, and they chose poorly. They chose the Hamas, which is entire purpose, as you know, is the obliteration of Israel. Gaza has a very fortuitous location by the sea. It should be the Singapore of the Mideast. Instead, it's the Somalia. That's Hamas's fault. So as long as Hamas Iran via Hamas and Hezbollah to the north, and even Fatah, the rival party to Hamas, all of those groups are in hock to Iran. As long as Iran controls those groups and those groups are committed to Israel's destruction, there is no two-state solution. There can't be.
And you mentioned
they want very badly to basically be the dominant power in the Middle East, the outside dominant power. And so they need to push the Americans over the horizon. They need to ensure that the Americans no longer have a leverage point over China. China gets a large chunk of its oil and natural gas from the Middle East. And so the Americans right now, with all of their access to the Middle East, have the ability in the event of a conflict with China to cut off access Chinese access to their energy needs. And so by pressuring the Americans, by putting pressure on American proxies like Israel or the Sunni Arab states through Iran, the Chinese can basically push the Americans out and force whatever proxies remain to become reliant on China to protect those Middle Eastern powers from Iranian rob. And that's what the play here is. They need access to or dominance over the energy sectors of the Middle East, and then they also want to gain access to the high-tech sectors in places like Saudi Arabia and Israel.
Brandon Bankman-Fried is now convicted of defrauding customers and potential partners out of billions of dollars. Yesterday, a New York jury found Bankman-Fried guilty on all 7 criminal counts against him. He now faces maximum sentencing of up to 115 years in prison. If he's convicted of wire fraud, he is convicted of wire fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and stealing at least $10 billion from customers and investors. Most of the defense case was built on the testimony of Bankman-Fried himself, who told the court that he didn't commit fraud or steal any customer money, but just made some business mistakes. Prosecutors clapping back too, saying that anyone who breaks the law will be held accountable.
It's a warning, this case, to every single fraudster out there who thinks that they're untouchable, or that their crimes are too complex for us to catch, or that they're too powerful for us to prosecute, or that they could try to talk their way out of it when they get caught. Those folks should think again and cut it out. And if they don't, I promise we'll have enough handcuffs for all of them.
Bankman-Fried
That goes to the Biden crime family, too.
Of 2024. Closing argument, a victim of extortion and isn't a killer. Charles Edelson, a Florida dentist, is on trial in the murder-for-hire case involving his ex-brother-in-law. Police say that he's being charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy, and soliciting the killing. In court yesterday, Adelson claims that he was being extorted by the killers and wasn't actually involved in the plot to kill a prominent Florida State University professor. According to Adelson, his ex-girlfriend told him that an ex-boyfriend had committed the crime, threatening Adelson to pay more than $300,000 or he would be killed too. Prosecutors say that they plan a cross-examination for Adelson today.
Country as the world is already laughing at us.
While we're dividing ourselves from within, while the nation is focused on internal battles, a greater threat looms on the horizon. The Chinese Communist Party.
绝不允许任何外来势力奴役我们。谁妄想这样干，必将头破血流。
They're systematically infiltrating our government. They're stealing our technology and they're attacking our freedoms.
The FBI is opening a new China-related counterintelligence case about every 10 hours.
The Chinese are preparing for war. We Americans are very good at being oblivious as to what our enemies are saying. And we did not pay attention to Osama bin Laden until one day he killed 2,977 Americans.
This is not just a battle of ideologies or just about pursuit of dominance. This is a war that will alter the course of our lives. And if we lose, it will condemn our children and future generations to a world of unimaginable horrors. This is why my show in the Epoch Times is so critical. We're not afraid to take on the Chinese regime head on. And he said, they told me that if I keep talking to you, they're going to hire a hitman to chop off one of my hands. We're not afraid to call out the CCP for their atrocities. We're completely independent. Our only interest is in traditional journalism and reporting truthfully.
Bizarre news today. The Chinese Communist Party is opening up police stations, departments, and working as overseas bureaus all around the world, including right here in New York.
You heard that right. It's time to replace the Chinese regime's propaganda with truth. Get back to the basics. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All you have to do is subscribe to Epoch TV. You'll get so